How's it going, everybody? Today we are going to repent on Yami Noob. I'm going to talk to you about if I was wrong about the Ninja 500, because right now I'm on a Ninja 500, as those of you with eyeballs can see. And I'm riding this Ninja 500 around, this SE in the 40th anniversary trim. Great looking motorcycle, because it's a giveaway bike on yaminoob.co. Click that link down below. Check out the giveaway on the website, become a member. Don't miss your chance to win. We've had tons of new members sign up. It's been a ton of fun on the Discord, seeing everybody come through, having a good time. And so yeah, don't miss your chance. So let's talk about this bike and what I've said about it in the past. So when this bike was first announced, I was really upset at it, honestly. I was like, oh my God, I cannot believe the Kawasaki's gonna go out and make a 451 stroker engine out of their 400 that's not gonna rev out the way it used to, and it's not gonna do the thing that it always did, and oh my God, it's gonna be a disaster. It's gonna be this fat, stupid bike. And I wasn't exactly wrong, but I wasn't exactly right either. Basically what Kawasaki did here was they built a motorcycle that's way better at being an all-around street bike. The Ninja 400, while I did love that motorcycle, and I still love that bike, I've raced them, I've tracked them, I've given them away, I've owned like 5 or 6 different Ninja 400s at this point. Really enjoy the platform, very familiar with it, and that bike was a ton of fun, but it was a little hamstrung by the fact that it was very, you know, sporty. It really wanted to just be this fun, peppy little sport bike, and it really was. Now the ergonomics were pretty easy going. It wasn't like a ZX6 or anything, and it wasn't even like a ZX4 that is way more committed and way more oriented around the sport kind of stuff. But I think Kawasaki did such a smart thing with the Ninja 500 by just making it a little bit more grown up, right? And so they basically created 2 different Ninja 500s, right? They have this SE model, which has the TFT, it has the taller windshield, the frame sliders, the radiator guard, just a bunch of little creature comfort stuff that a rider would normally do on these bikes, right? If you go out and buy a Ninja 500, you'd probably end up doing this sort of stuff too. But what I didn't think about was the fact that the Ninja 500 still has the Ninja 400's frame and geometry, except with a little bit more mid-range grunt. Now, it doesn't pull as hard at the top end like a 400 used to do, but you can still party pretty good with this motorcycle. As you guys see here, I'm cruising along this twisty road, being sure to not see those kind of sandy, gravelly things in the middle there. And the bike still works really well in the way that the Ninja 400 always did. But what they've done is that now it works better as an all-around bike, right? I have a USB-C charge port. I have the ability to ride this motorcycle around for a long period of time, which is something that, you know, I think a lot of riders would do with their Ninja 400s, right? You buy these bikes to go and ride long days in the saddle. That's what beginner riders do with these bikes. And now with this little bit extra grunt in the middle and slightly better highway manners, the bike's just become an excellent all-rounder. And they did the stuff that matters to people, right? Like, for whatever reason, people really enjoy the paint schemes, and they really want the bike to look a certain way and to behave a certain way. And I think that this bike really fits the bill for a lot of people, you know? It looks cool. It's got the Kawasaki, you know, green bike thing. It's fun, you know, it's nice. I think it's cool that they did that for people and give them a bike that has those sporty intentions. They probably did market research and saw that people really love the fact that the CF Moto has this kind of big bike presence and look to it. And I'll tell you what, Kawasaki, by using the Ninja 400 chassis and that stroker motor that they're putting in the Eliminator and hopefully some other categories as well, they're saving a bunch of money. So they've kept the cost relatively in line. The SE trim does cost as much as an Aprilia RS 457. It is more expensive than a CF Moto 450 SS, but you do get some nice stuff on this bike. The taller windshield, the TFT, the frame sliders. And if you do want to save a bunch of money, you can simply just get, you know, a Ninja 400 in the base configuration that I think costs like $53.99 or something like that. So it's relatively good value for money, but I do think, you know, given the fact that they're still using the Ninja 400 chassis and just that stroker engine and everything else, all the components are basically the same except for the fairings. Kawasaki's printing money on these. I bet you their margins are so much higher than a CF Moto. And the fact that Kawasaki doesn't have that sweet CCCP stimulus that CF Moto does, much like other Chinese companies that unfairly compete in the US market, right? As we hit this decreasing radius corner here, we'll keep it in third as I show you guys here. Look at that torque. That's different from the 400 of days past. Braking performance is decent. You don't feel the extra weight as much. This bike did increase a little bit in weight over the 400, but you barely notice it. You really barely notice it. And you can still obviously get this thing down quite a bit of pounds for race trim. As we'll hit this decreasing radius here, carry those brakes. Very nice. It still works the same way the 400 always did, because the bones are basically the same, you know? So I was a little wrong. I think that this motorcycle is much more refined and pulled together than I gave it credit for. Is it a fatter, slightly slower Ninja 400? Sort of, not really, right? Like, it's trying to be a different thing. And I think I can respect that, you know? I can respect the fact that the Ninja 500 wants to be a different motorcycle than the 400 used to be. And I think Kawasaki realized that if they tried to go for the ultra sporty thing like the RS457, they weren't really going to be able to compete, because they'd have to design an all new motor and not just stroke out the 399cc parallel twin that they used to have, right? And I think that's why they made the ZX4. You know, something that I didn't give the 500 enough credit for is that it sits alongside the ZX4. So in order for it to sit alongside the ZX4, it really has to be a very different sort of motorcycle, right? It needs to be a motorcycle that can do a little bit of all-day comfortable riding and have a lot of fun and enjoy itself and all that stuff. And I think it really can. The ZX4 is certainly the more sporty option, right? And this bike is clearly the bike designed for all riders. And when you do that, you obviously end up with a bike that, you know, it's not that exciting to ride. The other bikes in the category are a teensy bit more exciting to ride, but it's still a great bike. And one thing that I find interesting that I'm going to wonder about with, you know, the Ninja 650 and the, you know, ZX4 is I think the Ninja 500 is definitely going to cannibalize the Ninja 650 sales. I really think that Kawasaki's in a position now to look at the Ninja 650 and kind of be like, what are we trying to do with this motorcycle, right? Like, it does not compete with the R7s and the RS660s of the world, the GSX-8Rs of the world, not even a little bit, right? Like, it's not really in that big twin beginner plus not so super sport category. And so I think Kawasaki's in a prime position now to have seen what the market is responding to and to go after something that can fit in that Twins Cup category, right? And they don't need to do much, right? They just need to make it perhaps a little more sporty, get the parallel twin to be a little bit more dialed in, right? Maybe drop a different engine in there, I don't know. Maybe pull a Honda CBR 650R and put a detuned 636 motor in there. I'm not sure, right? Like, I'm not sure what Kawasaki could do in terms of cost effectiveness, because the ZX4 kind of is their answer to those bikes in terms of horsepower and price. A tuned ZX4 makes 75 horsepower, R7 makes 75 horsepower, right? Makes way more torque than a ZX4, but, you know, that's kind of where the game's at nowadays. And yeah, I think the Ninja 500 is just going to cannibalize a lot of those sales. I really think so. I really think that the Ninja 400 is just in a prime position to take away sales from the Ninja 650, from R7s and those sort of things. Like, it's just a really great, well-rounded motorcycle that anyone could ride and enjoy. I am surprised. I can't quite recall if the Ninja 400 was this compact in the saddle, but this feels very compact in the saddle. This motorcycle feels very tight, very small. That's one thing that I maybe would want to change if I owned this motorcycle, would just get some slightly lower rear sets, change them up a little bit so my rider triangle is a little bit more open, and I think that would help me out a little bit. But I wouldn't want to compromise ground clearance for high-speed cornering on this bad boy, because it's probably going to already rub a little bit. But yeah, the Ninja 500, was I wrong? Yes and no. Yes and no. I think I was perhaps a little too mean to this bike, calling it just like a fat, slow Ninja 500 or 400. I think it's better than that. It's a more complete package, and I think that Kawasaki's responding to the market with a bike that meets the moment, right? It's a bike that I think a lot of people would be very interested in because it can do a lot, right? It's very similar to the GSX-8R in that way, but just at a much lower price point, in that, you know, you can tour with this thing, you can ride it around, you can ride it sporty. I think the only downside is this little parallel twin, as we hear it zing up here a little bit. It's still pretty darn quick though. And despite the fact that it doesn't rev to 12,000 RPM anymore like the Ninja 400, I haven't really missed it as much. Now, one thing I will note is that this engine does seem to have peak power at a little over 9,000 RPM. Above that is all over rev. It doesn't really make any more additional horsepower. It doesn't really pull past that, you know. Typically on like a 400 or a 4-cylinder motorcycle, you get up to the rev line, you feel it just like pulling more, and this parallel twin does die out a little bit. But that's something that maybe you could tune if you had this motorcycle. Maybe you could do it a little ECU flash and get that final little bit of top end power that it does seem to be lacking a little bit. But you know, I think Kawasaki, it's awesome that they're meeting the moment and they're trying to compete, and they're like, no, we're not going to let freaking Aprilia and CF Moto steal our lunch from the 400 sales, because they dominated this category for 7+ years. Honest to God, they did. They really did. This is a motorcycle, the Ninja 400, that when it debuted in 2018, I think, it just blew everything else away. There was nothing else on the market that was quite as good as the 400 for years and years and years. And only now are there bikes that are even close to as good. And you still ride this thing and you flick it over on the side, and there's that familiar settled sense that the Ninja 400 chassis has that I just love, you know? It feels like a well-worn pair of boots to me. And I think for any of us who rode Japanese parallel twins with the 180 crank, it is such a familiar feeling being on a Ninja 500 now, as opposed to, you know, even the RS457 or some of those other bikes. Like, this is a very familiar, nice place to sit. And yeah, I feel like I was a little harsh with it, because I still really enjoy it. And I didn't think that it would be nearly as enjoyable as a 400, but it's so similar that it kind of functionally doesn't really matter. You know, for the average street rider, if you're to ride a Ninja 400 and a 500 back to back, the difference is very marginal, very marginal. Like, the 500 is a nicer place to sit, obviously. Like, it's got the cooler fairings and the TFT dash and the keyless ignition and all this stuff. Those are nice features that you're like, oh, cool, like I'm on a more premium feeling motorcycle. But the feeling from the seat, the chassis, the engine, dude, it's so similar that it might as well be the same bike, honestly. Like, you feel it a little bit, like there, you're like, okay, it's got a little bit more torque and grunt, but it's so similar that it doesn't really matter, you know? It's a negligible difference, honestly, negligible. So boys, that's gonna wrap up my thoughts on if I was wrong about the old Ninja 500 SE. It's a pretty sweet little bike. It's not bad. I definitely was a little mean to it, I'd say. And so let me know in the comments down below if you think I'm just full of crap. And I just be making videos, man. I just be making videos, talking crap about bikes and going back on my word and rage baiting you guys. But I promise there's a thread here, right? You guys probably think I'm like Donald Trump in his weave, right? Talking about nonsense and hoping that it all comes back together. But I promise there's a plan here, folks. There's a plan, I promise. So make sure you head over to yammydoob.co, get entered to win this lime green lean mean machine right here, this Ninja 500 SC. We just wrapped up the RS457 giveaway. We're gonna have this one for a teensy bit longer than we had that bike, and we will have a spicy brand new motorcycle towards the end of the year as well that you're not gonna want to miss. Discord boys already know what it is, and it's going to be a sweet time. We'll catch you guys in the next one. Thanks so much for watching today's video. We'll see you later.
I'm like a bird, I wanna fly away. I don't know where my soul is. I don't know where my home is. Da 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 da. I'm like a bird, I wanna fly away. I don't know where my soul is. Oh, hey. You're still here. Man, this is awkward. You should, you should keep watching Yammy Noob.